A note to all before starting today's talk. As you may have noticed, my videos are no longer monetized. YouTube has made the effort to keep them monetized so difficult and uncertain that it's not worth it for the return yield. To stay ahead of the curve on this, I established an account at vid.me. However, after multiple attempts to monetize my channel there and follow-up inquiries to their customer service, I've not been able to get that channel monetized or even to get customer service to reply to my inquiries. To tell you the truth, it's a bit frustrating, leaving me with the challenge of yet again finding another platform where my work won't be targeted by the PC police. Now more than ever, your support through donations and Patreon is very important. If you get value from the work I do and can afford it, please consider visiting one of the links below and chipping something into the tip jar. Any amount helps and is greatly appreciated. Okay, end of pitch and time for today's talk. And today, as I occasionally do on this channel, I prepared a talk for women, of course with the entertainment and education of men in mind. Linked below, you will find a 2009 article from Forbes titled Self-Help Books, Why Women Can't Stop Reading Them, penned by a woman named Kiri Blakely, who says about herself directly under her byline, I write about women being buzzed about and what women are buzzing about. Okay, whatever. I wish I could say things improved after that buzz-killing short bio, but of course, if they had, I'd be doing a different talk. Blakely informed us that in 2008, over 13 million self-help books were sold in the U.S., 74% of them to women. All the titles she cited as examples were about relationships, which sets the stage for what she attempted to do in the article. Explain why relationship literature is a woman's market and why men view relationship literature like day-old sushi. Of course, she took direct aim at the broadside of a barn, no pun intended, and shot herself directly in the foot. But that was as predictable as any other time you see a woman in the mainstream trying to explain the drives and motivations of men. She rightfully points out that men are by nature problem solvers and more inclined to seek their own solutions to relationship problems. She did overlook the other thing, though, the more obvious answers to why men shun the books, even though the answer to that was staring her in the face when she typed the titles to the best-selling offerings on the subject. Books like Women Who Love Too Much, Smart Women, Foolish Choices, and Men Who Hate Women and the Women Who Love Them. Rather than seeing the problem that was right in front of her face, Blakely sent her rationalization hamster into high gear, running for the nearest wrong explanation. What gives? Blakely inquires into the void. Underneath a powerful, confident career woman, is there really just a desperate neurotic who hopelessly chases, is married to, or is separating from a jerky guy? An answer to that dumb question not forthcoming, she relies on an outside source. Another woman, of course, and a gender studies expert to boot. Not quite, says B.J. Gallagher. Part of this phenomenon lies in the self-esteem issues. When a woman has a problem, she immediately blames herself. Blakely moves on from there, assuming that the woman gender studies expert must be right. Publishers as well as advertisers know this, she says. Hence titles that subtly or not so subtly cast blame while offering a solution. Men, however, if they can even admit they have a personal problem, don't tend to look to others for solutions. And there you have it. A list of book titles that drip with implied male culpability, including the hatred of women, and these two Einsteins conclude that women read those titles and blame themselves. If you want to understand why women buy wheelbarrows full of relationship self-help books but never get anywhere with them, the answer is found between the dumbed-down lines of Blakely's slipshod article. And of course, Blakely can't resist inserting her own condescending poke at men for being unable to admit to personal problems. Projection, folks. It's not just a booth at the back of the theater. Blakely's piece is typical of the very genre she is trying to critique. in that it is riddled with non sequiturs, faulty assumptions, and bias against men, casting women as so enlightened paragons of relationship prowess held back by the male losers in their lives. Just the kind of thing women will buy by the millions. And I see all this, and I want to help, because I'm a helping kind of guy, and I hate to see women being led astray by other women. So, as I have a handful of other times on my channel, I want to offer women some supportive advice that will actually do them some good. You only need to hear it once and start practicing. No need for 13 million copies a year, and no need to buy the same repackaged bullshit over and over again, looking for answers that aren't there. Today, I make my contribution to this effort with my top 3 of the many things women must unlearn to have successful relationships. First is the myth of the lost self. One of the most pervasive mantras in the self-help market is that women get into relationships and lose themselves. It's like, where is myself? I swear I had it when I came in here. Or, after X number of years in a relationship with him, I lost myself. And of course, the self-help gurus purport one $20 book at a time to hand you a flashlight so you can find and reconnect with yourself again. Yeah, that's what they're up to with book titles about how men hate you. Ladies, stop what you're doing just for a moment and listen to what I'm about to tell you. Lean in, as Sheryl Sandberg would say, and just hear this one remarkable, unassailable truth that will set you free. Are you listening? Good. Here we go. Ladies, if you lost yourself in a relationship, you never had a self to begin with. Now, let that sink in for a moment. If you lost yourself in a relationship, you never had a self to begin with. People, men and women alike, do not surrender themselves or lose themselves in relationships if they enter them with a secure, intact sense of self from the start. When you have that intact and secure sense of self, you cannot lose it, even if you try, and it is impossible for it to be taken from you. This is what the self-help gurus don't want you to know. They'd rather sell you on the idea, which permeates their books, that who you are, your values and beliefs, your boundaries and identity are weak and easily undermined by other people. That's the main reason why the self-help book you bought 6 years ago with great hopes hasn't done anything for your relationship problems. Because the last thing any woman-centric self-help guru appealing to a woman-centric market wants you to have is a concretely secure self. Firmly secure people don't need self-help bullshit, which is why the market for it is dominated by women and why most men take a pass. You can see this pervasively reflected in the work I do on this channel, which is intended to help men. The only way to do that is by putting the onus totally on them for their lives, for the maintenance of their values, for the enforcement of their boundaries. No passes for victimhood, no bedtime stories about a boogeyman who doesn't exist. Ladies, just like with men, your problem is looking back at you in the mirror. Own that, and you own your life in a way from which you cannot be robbed. Capiche? Okay, let's move on to myth number 2. Self-help gurus have forever been lying to you about the importance of your feelings. They encourage you, not that you have ever really needed it, to focus unquestioningly on your feels and to give them primacy. And of course to expect the man in your life to do the same. Oh, but not about his feels, about yours. Can I get you to lean in again? Great, thanks. Ladies, this is bullshit. And not just any bullshit, but the bullshit that comes from the beefiest genetically engineered bulls on steroids. I'm not saying your feelings aren't important. They are. But if you want to make any headway in solving relationship problems with men, your feelings better damn well match the facts. Frequently, they don't. Covering up that inconvenient reality with a lot of bilge about how feelings aren't right or wrong, they are just feelings, won't help. In fact, such idiotic platitudes do a lot more harm than good. Like it or not, solving relationship problems involves problem solving. Problems don't get solved by expecting your man to assent obediently and nod his head approvingly while you vomit out every irrational thought in your head. Problems get solved with honest, accurate analysis and commensurate action. It means two people making an honest, bare-bones assessment of any given problem, then comparing facts, not feelings. I understand that this is a challenge for most women, with an abundance of thanks for that going to self-help hucksters. Well, that, and that you've been told all your life that feelings are more important than facts, it leaves you at a disadvantage. It makes it more challenging for you to understand two very important things. One, when trying to problem solve, facts are 1,000 times more helpful than feelings. And two, if you look honestly at the facts, your feelings will likely change for the better. Well, maybe after it pisses you off a little, but you get my point. Ladies, if your man ever gets frustrated with something you've done wrong and question you for doing it, don't respond to him with the words, "I felt." That is a chicken shit move, a way to pretend to answer his question by doing your best to avoid it. As a matter of fact, I counsel men all the time that when explanations for your mistakes start with the words, "I felt," they should ignore everything else that comes out of your mouth. Again, there's nothing at all wrong with sharing your feelings, but when you use them to cover misbehavior, to avoid responsibility, you've just demonstrated what your supposedly important feels are really all about. I said all this to say that relationships, if you're going to have one, require you to show up with your big girl panties on, prepared to seek truth as a much higher priority than seeking an audience for your transient, ever-shifting, and often misused emotions. For more on this, I link below to a talk I did several years ago titled Your Feelings and Why They Don't Matter. Finally, the third bit of misinformation I offer for your consideration is taken directly from Blakely's article where she quotes the gender studies expert. Part of this phenomenon lies in self-esteem issues, she said. When a woman has a problem, she immediately blames herself. Well, sorry ladies, but if you believe that's true, don't bother leaning in. Instead, please go get help for your crack habit or whatever else is happening in your life to make you believe this level of utter and complete drivel. In 30 years of working with men, one of the top complaints I've heard, and I hear it all the time, is that women don't blame themselves or subsequently take responsibility for anything. And this explains why so many of you have failed so miserably at point one, taking full ownership of your life. That ownership requires responsibility. It requires an it's all on me attitude about your whole life. It requires the rejection of victimhood and the rejection of dependence on others for your self-image. And it is where women fail, like Obamacare. And it is tragic because personal accountability is the only path to happiness that exists, which explains why so many women are so miserable in relationships. That is not saying that every relationship problem is a woman's fault. Far from it. But it is saying that if any particular relationship problem is your fault, you better know it and be prepared to act on that knowledge like a grown-up. And if I had to sum up the entire self-help industry that is geared for women, it would be to say that in its essence, it is designed to help you avoid that fact like it was syphilis. Now, I could have made this talk about 10 myths to debunk instead of 3 or 100 for that matter. But it should not take that much work to demonstrate for you that the source of your problems isn't men. The source of your problems is you, just like it is in every human being who ever walked on this planet. And besides, if you can manage to woman up and get a handle on these three, everything else will fall into place. Or, if that sounds like too much work for you, you can always buy another book. Amazon Books and Kiri Blakely will be very happy you did. And that is it for this talk. As always, I do hope you've enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.